The SR Manuscript, Volume 2. The accumulation of 3 years of research and writings on the topic of semen retention. If you wish to physically own the works of the ancient archives, then this book is for you. I think it goes without saying that any man who commits to the practice of semen retention will become more attractive, as attractiveness is an extension of good health and abundant life force. The extent to which semen retention can improve someone's health and attractiveness will vary for each person, as everyone's habits around sexual release are different. An alcoholic who quits drinking after 30 years may have a very different experience than an alcoholic who quits only after 5 years. The alcoholic of 5 years has avoided 25 years worth of damage, and thus the difference in recovery may appear less apparent. But of course, the 5-year alcoholic is in a much better position, even if the changes are not as noticeable as the 30-year alcoholic, simply due to the fact that they have accumulated less damage. The frequency of their habit also matters, as some may only release occasionally, where others release multiple times a day. On top of this, some people are simply born of better physiological quality than others. Some are born with more symmetrical features, better skin, clearer eyes, a more favorable bone structure, whilst others are born with congenital weaknesses, genetic predispositions, or physical traits that make them more prone to certain diseases. Attractiveness on semen retention can be understood this way. We are all born with different physiological traits which set the boundaries of our natural attractiveness. However, within those limits, there is still considerable room for improvement, allowing us to move from less attractive to more attractive, depending on how we manage our health, energy, and vitality. I believe semen retention to hugely influence our attractiveness markers, because as we have seen in studies on organisms that do not produce and release a seminal secretion, women and eunuchs, their life expectancy is greatly increased in comparison with semen-secreting males. Slower aging means slower physical decline, allowing a man to retain the youthful qualities that contribute to his attractiveness for longer. For these reasons, when considering your own attractiveness on semen retention, rather than comparing yourself to others or rating your attractiveness with a number, it is far more useful to compare your current state of attractiveness to your previous state of attractiveness. I think any man retaining completely for at least 6 to 12 months will notice a marked improvement in their physical form, particularly when it comes to their eyes, complexion, and face. Long before you started semen retention, perhaps you noticed your face looking worse on days after masturbation, a dullness in the eyes, deeper troughs around the cheeks, pale-looking skin, or more blemishes appearing. I think a lot of men have experienced this before and are aware, perhaps even unconsciously, of this connection on some level. If you trace back to the times where your face was looking worse, you may find that they also coincided with times you experienced high sexual frequency and semen release. It is perhaps hard to imagine just how intricately connected the genitals are to the appearance of the face. Consider this. When in an aroused state, it is not uncommon for the face to flush. The bloods travel to the face and the cheeks become bright red. Also, the feeling of fear is often felt in the gonads and brings about a pale complexion to the face. This is said to be related to the fight or flight response. When you're afraid, your sympathetic nervous system ramps up. Blood is redirected to your vital organs, and non-essential processes like reproduction are temporarily suppressed. The face and the state of the genitals seem to be intricately connected, and this is why I believe semen retention has such a profound influence over the facial appearance. I can say this with confidence, as much of it comes from personal experience. Starting with the eyes, perhaps the most important feature of the face. It has been said that poor features with good eyes are preferable to poor eyes with good features. The eyes transmit so much of our inner world, so much of our biology, our state of health and vitality. It is no wonder they are referred to as the windows of the soul. A man depleted in semen from excessive release has often reported dull and depleted eyes. Aristotle wrote that out of all parts of the head, the eyes are the most seminal, and that those who overindulge in sex develop a sunken look in their eyes. It was written in the 1800s, "All false sexual excitements causing seminal losses in males and undue passion in females report themselves in the eyes. Those who know can pick out such, and also those husbands and wives who prevent issues by premature withdrawals, as far as they can, get a good look into their eyes. Girls, those beaux whose eyes have a dull, sleepy, listless, downcast, vacant, glaring, glazed, leaden, spiritless, or lascivious, leering, vulgar, lustful look out of them, will be much less satisfactory as husbands than those who have bright, sunny, clear, pure, loving eyes. The former may be better than none, but are poor critters." Red ribbons around eyelids indicate sexual inflammation and passion in its more animal, sensuous aspect, while a bluish, azure, leaden-covered white of the eyes indicates sexual exhaustion, impotence in the male, barrenness and passivity in the female. Seminal losses in men are indicated by this white of the eyes having a pale, yellowish, greasy aspect. Even today, it is well known that many sexual conditions reveal symptoms of the ailment in the eyes. The Swiss physician Tissot in the 1700s made mention of this connection of the eyes and face with semen loss. A loss of colour or an earthy tint of the countenance, a violet appearance of the eyelids, a languid expression of face, an air of fatigue and nonchalance. When the patient rises from bed, a difficulty in getting up, are all signs which may lead to the discovery of this pernicious habit. Here we might trace the physical state produced by onanism, if this had not already been done. As Tissot writes, here it is not only the eyes that are changed through seminal emissions, it is the overall appearance of the face, the countenance, as they used to say. In my own experience, my face looked its worst during two distinct phases of my life when sexual activity was high. Interestingly, those were also times when I received the least attention from the opposite sex. In both cases, I had recently moved to a new city, felt isolated, and found myself turning to adult content more often. During these times, I had even received a few comments or concerns that my eyes were looking dark and my face wasted. My cheeks seemed dull and my complexion was of an unhealthy colour. As my father suffered from a serious health condition, I became concerned that I may have inherited it. However, after visiting the hospital for blood tests, I was told there were no signs of the illness in my results. I was very worried about my health at this time, and I think that is what fueled my interest in this subject. Due to circumstance rather than conscious choice, I reduced this habit as I became a full-time worker and made new social connections. A year or so after, my face improved and I began to look more healthy again. It was also at this time that I started to receive more interest from women and began to have more luck in dating. I didn't connect any of these dots at the time, of course, but it seems obvious now that I think of it. It has been over a decade since this time period, and looking back on it now, I feel my face looks healthier now than it did back then, even having aged over 10 years. If you haven't noticed this difference before, I suggest you pay it some attention and see if you experience the same difference in appearance between times when you are releasing and times when you are abstaining. I sense that most people who have been retaining for a while may already be somewhat aware of this difference in appearance. Your testes are very closely connected to the adrenal glands, and thus exhaustion of the testes would likely have a significant impact on the state of the adrenals. Adrenal fatigue is also well known for its signs in the face. Symptoms such as sunken eyes, dark circles, and pale complexion. all of which are also mentioned as symptoms in those overindulging in sex and masturbation. The process of ejaculation and orgasm is said to have a tremendous impact on the nervous system. Bernard writes, "It is clear that there is an important internal physiological relation between the secretions of the sex glands and the central nervous system, that the loss of these secretions, voluntarily or involuntarily, exercises a detrimental effect on the nutrition and vitality of the nerves and brain, while on the other hand, the conservation of these secretions has a vitalizing effect on the nervous system, a regenerating effect on the endocrine glands, and a rejuvenating effect on the organism as a whole." The face and appearance of a masturbator has come up often in old works, alluding to the idea that a man practicing this habit could not hide his habit, for in trying to, he would be instantly betrayed by his own appearance. There is not a single form of sensualism that is not branded with its external, yet significant mark of recognition. Let not the intensely prurient, yet seemingly modest victim of secret pollution lay the flattering unction to his soul, that from the eye of his fellow mortals he can conceal his unmanly vice. It is written upon his forehead. It is enstamped upon his visage, his sunken countenance, his pale, unmeaning, inexpressive face, his lustreless eyes, his attenuated frame, his quick, abashed retreat from the gaze of virtuous women. All proclaim the enfeebled votary of solitary vice, or worse than monk obscene. Here then is one form of the fulfillment of that prediction. There is nothing done in secret that shall not be revealed, neither hid, even from men, that shall not be known, how much more intimately to the omniscient God. It is fabled of the ostrich that she is so devoid of reasoning intelligence as to hide her head from her pursuers in the nearest thicket, unconscious that her enormous body is unconcealed. And can a stronger illustration be afforded of the effects of sensualism in darkening the understanding than is found in the fact that the victims of solitary vice dare to gratify the depraved propensity in the admitted gaze of the omnipresent eye? Horrible perversity of nature's keenest pleasure! How stupefying is that infatuation, which deliberately yet secretly poisons the power of manly enjoyment, deprives the Lord of this fair world of those temperate gratifications which the great author of creation has permitted, nay, positively enjoined and commanded. Increase and multiply that ye may replenish the earth, is alike the dictate of nature and revelation. The suffering then of the violator of this provision, his living death, is but the first consequence of his criminality. From the 1800s. The patient was in appearance a typical masturbator. He was small, emaciated, hollow-chested, thin-necked, weak-kneed, shambling in his gait, careless in his dress and person. In his deep-set eyes rested the shadow of despair. His pale, hollow cheeks and general expression of moral abasement were sufficiently indicative of the practice that had brought him to this condition. All of these traits reflect a lack of vitality and aesthetic appeal, qualities strongly associated with unattractiveness, and are far more likely to repel a fertile woman than draw her in. Consider the flower. When a flower begins to bloom, it enters its reproductive phase, and in doing so accelerates its own aging. As established by summer theory, reproduction draws vital resources away from bodily maintenance, hastening decline. The old adage, early to ripe, early to rot, captures this trade-off. The earlier or more intensely a flower reproduces, the more it may do so at the cost of its beauty and longevity. Conversely, when reproductive activity is limited, the flower often remains fresh and intact for longer. Studies in plant biology have shown that blooms which are unpollinated or have reduced reproductive output tend to age more slowly, retaining their form and color longer than their fertile counterparts. With fewer resources diverted towards reproduction, aging is delayed. In restraint, there is preservation. The keeping of a youthful face signifies the vitality of the organism beneath it, an organism that ages slower and with grace. When we talk about a glowing face and complexion as a result of semen retention, we are talking about a slowing down of the aging process. That the aging process slows due to reduced reproduction is undeniable and runs throughout nature. If attractiveness can be gained through sexual abstinence, then we must ask what makes one successfully abstain. That lies in your choice of thoughts. This all comes down to the thoughts you allow your mind to entertain. This is where you will have most difficulty. You must not allow thoughts of a perverted nature to dwell within you, as they will ultimately lead to relapse and semen loss. In order to do this, you must have a very strong reason why not to entertain sexual thoughts. I have found it helpful to see sexual thoughts as parasites that are so dangerous that infiltration of the mind will strip away all my noble traits of manhood. Of course, I am not successful 100% of the time, but with a strict view on the dangers of lustful thought, my mind can more easily avoid those ideas altogether. When we think of masturbation as harmless or inconsequential, then of course we don't feel as compelled to avoid it. For any retainer that has already successfully retained for some time and seen various benefits, it would be wise to understand that the entertainment of sexual thoughts could unravel all of those benefits you have so diligently worked for. You must hold on to those benefits and allow them to grow. The only thing you need to do is think pure thoughts and eliminate lustful ones. Occasionally they will return uninvited, and at that time you just need to think of something more interesting or perhaps change your physical state. If you're sitting still, then get moving. If you're awake in bed, then get out of bed and put your phone away. You know, don't you, that if people wish to safeguard valuable things from robbers, they put them in a safe. The greater its value, the stronger the vault, the stronger the safe. Your greatest treasure is the purity of your soul. Build then an impenetrable wall around this treasure and install every safety device to protect it from robbers, from the dark spirits of sin who covet your treasure. Guard your thoughts, all your words, glances, actions, and exercise the greatest care to avoid the first false step, because the first moral fall is easily followed by a second, and by a 10th also. You know now that your entire future may lie in the balance, and that the few years' struggle during which you have to show perseverance is really no hardship, but an opportunity for self-expression. Yes, it is the time during which you are called upon to show whether by noble and skillful artistry you can mold yourself into a manly character, or that you cannot. Limit the activity of reproduction and your organism will carry less burden and live longer. You will age slower and as a result retain more youth, more beauty, and more energy. Your presence will be more felt, your words will carry more weight, even your scent will be more attractive, because all aspects of your form will emanate more signs of life and vitality. Every aspect of you will be inherently more attractive than the version of you that dissipates their energy into the channels of sex and masturbation. Don't let the force escape. Keep it within you, and it will radiate through your entire being. Use that energy for living, for sharpening your mental faculties, for improving your body and strengthening your physicality. Your energy is finite. Be very wary of which channels you decide to direct it to, as the more one channel gets, the less the other channel receives. Sexual abstinence is a small price to pay for a rich, rewarding life. You will find no greater secret to living long and well than retaining your seminal energy.